Welcome back to Green is Good, and I'm so honored and excited to have Larsen Jay on with us today. He's the founder and CEO of Random Acts of Flowers. Welcome to Green is Good, Larsen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, Larsen, I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. I heard an interview with you a while back, and I was just so inspired and so moved by your story. And before we get talking about Random Acts of Flowers, which is such a great organization, and for our listeners out there, check out more of Larsen's great work at randomactsofflowers.org, randomactsofflowers.org. But Larsen, please tell a little bit of your story first, of how you took some personal hardships and made it into this amazing mission and journey that you're on now.
Absolutely. Well, the year was it was 2007, and ironically, this was a year where I went to up in British Columbia skiing. I went to the Everest Base Camp hiking, and went to all these places where you should get broken and battered or come back with some sort of injury. I was a film and television producer for 15 plus years, and came back just fine. And for some reason, on a early Sunday morning, July 29th, 2007, I was doing a do-it-yourself project and fixing a roof on a workshop that I owned, and just, basic project, and up and down the ladder, and tools and tarps, and just kind of doing my thing. And for some reason, on the 14th, 15th time down the ladder, I stepped on the top, and the bottom collapsed out from underneath me, and I fell about a story and a half face down on the concrete, and ended up in a really, really bad spot, and to the point where I probably shouldn't be here with you today. I fell about a story and a half and broke left arm, left wrist, right elbow, right femur, nose, 10 skull fractures, and pretty much, the only reason I'm here is because I had hit the ladder and not the concrete. Otherwise, it'd been a whole lot worse. But 2 seconds and a really freak accident changed everything, and I was rushed to the University of Tennessee Level 1 Medical Trauma Center, and right into surgery, and 2 days in ICU, 10 days on the trauma floor, 10 days in intensive rehab, and about 3.5 months in a wheelchair, followed by 11 surgeries to date and counting, and really put me back together very much, parts and pieces, and pins and rods and screws, and I'm alive, I'm upright, and it's a good start. And that's where it all began. That was summer of 2007, and when I was in the hospital, the idea sort of spawned from the fact that when I was there during my early days of that recovery, and what was the hardest week of my life, I got overwhelmed with support from people locally, regionally, nationally, even internationally, as word spread about the accident. And that support came in the way of flowers. And I had never been given flowers before. Most guys are never given flowers, or sent flowers. And it just made a big impact on me. It changed the environment of the room. It took what was, a bleak and dark and pretty sterile environment, and turned it into a sort of a lush green joy of jungle and happiness and celebration of life, and really sort of shifted my mental state from woe is me and how is this going to change my life to, recovery and looking forward. And it was a huge outpouring support that really came in and helped me in those first crucial days. And by the end of the first week, I got a little stir crazy. I don't sit for a real long time very well. And I had to convince my family and the nurses to kind of get me into a wheelchair and just get me out of my room. And after that took quite a while, we went outside my room, and we left what was this amazing, room of happiness and flowers and brightness, and we entered stark, sterile industrial hospitalization, which is what you find everywhere. And we saw room after room after room, how many rooms had no plants, no flowers, no visitors, just lifeless. And it was such a huge contrast that, quite simply, it just sparked an idea, and I just said, let's just go back and take all the cards off my flowers. And we loaded up my wheelchair. We didn't ask permission. We didn't see if it was okay. We didn't follow protocol. We just did it, and it was the right thing to do. And room after room, it made a huge, profound effect on people that were sort of unknowingly going to get this little visitor that rolled in with some flowers. That's how it all began.
That is just amazing. That is just one of my favorite stories we've ever had on Green is Good. It's just such a great story. And so how did you then decide to take that and make it into something bigger, such as Random Acts of Flowers?
Well, I spent a long time in a wheelchair, spent a long time by myself, and I kept thinking about those interactions with patients. And a lot of times I ask people, I say, when is the last time an absolute complete stranger did something nice for you? When it wasn't around a holiday, when they weren't trying to sell you something, preach to you, change your mind, or ask you to do something else. And it doesn't happen very often. And I remembered those first few interactions. And the very first room we ever went into on that day was a woman who was in full sort of headgear traction, wired to the gills. And she had a look without exaggeration of, I'm done. Pull the plug, those desperate eyes you never want to see in somebody. And we gave her a big bouquet of flowers, and she went from smiling to crying in 2 seconds. So we fundamentally shifted her entire mental state from desperation to happiness. And I kept remembering those interactions with the patients, and just, at the end of the day, it sort of came down to, okay, well, somebody must be doing this. This is a no-brainer. And so I actually sought out, somebody locally and said, okay, who can I support or be involved in? And I couldn't find anything locally, couldn't find anything regionally, couldn't find anything nationally. And so I found a few stories of people who had done, this individually. I mean, I didn't invent sliced bread. I mean, people have been repurposing flowers forever. Like a church sometimes takes their flowers to, their constituents, or maybe a wedding florist might do something for the, nursing home down the street. But I couldn't find anything that was sort of a bigger organized process. And I think as part of my healing process, it was an opportunity for me to do something to take this idea. And it was, probably 6 months later that I, came up with a half clever name, a bad logo, and sketched out a few ideas, and then sat down with my family and several of the people who had, sent me flowers and said, I've got an idea. Would you help? And they all said, great, let's go for it. And just like that first day when we didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about it, we just did it. We just started it. We didn't spend a lot of time, planning it out and theorizing and doing lots of meetings. We just sort of started it and said, well, let's see what happens. And we knew it was the right thing to do. So a year to the date of the accident, my wife and I wrote a check and incorporated our paperwork and started the charity and reached out to the hospital that saved my life and helped me, get better, and said, hey, we'd like to do something for the other patients. And they said, come on. And we just started, and that's how it all began. We didn't really think about it ever being what it is today.
That's so interesting how, great leaders, great visionaries, inspirational folks like you said you didn't ask for permission, you just started, you just acted.
Yeah.
And that's just great. I mean, that's how great things come about
right,
sometimes.
And it's true, and your intentions are right and true, and your focus is on someone else. The rest is logistics, and, you'll figure that out. I think that's, instead of sort of trying to figure out how are we going to do the most good for the most people right off the bat, we just said, let's just start and see it in action. And it just, it just took off. And we had a company, we had other professions. We started this thing with 199 donations, most of which were under $100. We started ironically out of the warehouse that I fell off of because I owned it. I figured, might as well use it. And we just started putting people together and saying, let's go try it out. And quite honestly, I think that we thought we might do this for a few years, pass it on to somebody else or another nonprofit, or, just, do it for a few years and that'd be enough. But here we are, almost 7 years later, and we've delivered over 60,000 floral bouquets, and we're now in cities across the country and growing. And my wife and I have, abandoned our careers and taken this on as our full-time endeavors. And we had no idea where, but it's really turned out to be quite an amazing journey so far.
Well, thank God you both have taken on as full careers, because, I mean, over 62,000 bouquets delivered. I'm reading some other great stats on you. 73,000 vases recycled nationwide. And how many people you serve? Random Acts of Flowers serves an average of 2,350 people per month. That's amazing, the lives that you touch every month.
And it's growing so fast. I mean, I would say of those 62,000 plus people that we've impacted, most half of that's in the last couple of years. I mean, it's just really taken hold. And then there's so many different touch points with, our greens initiative. I mean, all of, the tens of thousands of pounds of green composting waste, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just, the program goes on and on and on, but at its core, we're a mental health charity. We are focused on changing that person's life in that healthcare facility for just that little second in time. We're not trying to cure cancer. We're not trying to build a building. We're not trying to, cure homelessness or change social policy. We're just sort of, at its core, as goofy as it sounds, we're taking garbage and turning it into a grin. And we're trying to make the world a little better place with somebody else's trash, which
you are making the world.
It works really well.
You are. I mean, you really are. You are making the world a better place. And I just love your name of your company. Again, for our listeners out there who just joined us, we've got Larsen Jay. He's the founder and CEO of Random Acts of Flowers. To check them out, to support them, to jump in and help his great organization. It's randomactsofflowers.org. And I love the logo and the tagline: recycling flowers, delivering smiles. I mean, come on, this is just amazing. We have so much to cover, though, and I want to make sure we get to a lot of this. The vision for Random Acts of Flowers. You're now 7 years into it. You're touching all these lives every month. Talk a little bit about the vision now for you and your wife. Where can you take this, and what's your vision for the next 7 years?
Well, I mean, we're doing far beyond what we ever thought. But the goal ultimately is, how do we have a Random Acts of Flowers or similar organization in every city across the country, maybe beyond into the world? The formula is pretty basic. You have an endless supply of flowers being thrown away every single day in every community across the country, and of course across the world. You have an endless supply of volunteers who really, really want to help their community and make it a better place and impact people. And you have an endless supply of people in healthcare facilities who could just use a boost of mental health and a pick-me-up, and really nobody doing it on the scale that we are. And so we're this great, opportunity to be a great catalyst in all of those parties involved. And it's a unique situation. A lot of times in business, people talk about the white space or, the blue ocean of how do you find a new niche or how do you find a new opportunity. And with Random Acts of Flowers, we complement and don't compete against the floral industry. We serve a new part of healthcare that really is quite ignored, the mental side of healing. And we don't compete with any other nonprofit organization in our services. And so it's one of these sort of half by design, half stumbled into this great little white space where we can operate and impact a lot of people in a way that hasn't been, done before in a really effective way. And the great thing about Random Acts of Flowers is that, there's lots of things that I love, but one of the core parts of our mission is that we never charge for our services. So we're all privately funded. We don't take any public funding at all. It's all donations, grants, corporate support, foundations, things like that. But, for somebody who has a wedding, a funeral, a special event, a Christmas party, or even a grocery store or wholesaler, literally all they have to do is say, yes, you can have my flowers. Tell us where and when. We do all the work. We do all the logistics. We do all the pickup. And then, we never charge the healthcare facility. So it's not based on money, politics, religion, social cause. And I think that gets to the root of our mission and our core as an organization is we are, the giving of flowers is a universal gesture that cuts across all races, all religions, all income levels, demographics, disabilities, you name it. In 60+ thousand deliveries, we have delivered to every walk of life you can imagine, every type of person you can ever imagine, and the end result is always the same. It's a big smile and an opportunity to just be appreciative that somebody cared about them. So that's what healthcare kind of audit should be, is just something that affects everybody the same way and has an impact for a really simple, way to
Larsen,
pull it off.
You not only do you recycle the vases and the bouquets, but you do so much other green things. Can you just give a little bit of the laundry list of how green your great organization really is that contributes to the sustainability and the greenness in every community that you do your great work? Yeah,
we do our best to be as green as possible and be sustainable as possible. And when we get our donations, we break down every bit of the flowers that we get from down to its core material. So we never just sort of take a centerpiece and give it to a patient. We want to make sure all the flowers have maximum life. but we also want to reuse and try to use every part and piece. So behind every arrangement is, stems and wire and foam and cardboard and this and
Unbelievable.
All that kind of stuff. And we break it all down and we reuse as much as possible. And if we can't reuse it, then we try to recycle it. And we just, we know it's coming back anyway. So we use it, send it back out, it comes back. And we do lots of little things like, all of our green waste is composted in a local community garden or a landscaping company where it gets mixed in and turned back into mulch or other landscaping for different uses. We try to get our vase drives going where every time we go to a hospital, we, pick up more vases than we came with a lot of times, and those go in and out of the system. When you think about the footprint, it just take one city, for example, Knoxville, where we started this, Knoxville, Tennessee. They're serving over 1,000 people a month. So we have to process, 1,200, 1,300 vases every month just to kind of keep up. And we do. And that's pretty indicative of all of our branches. So we, whether it's the vase, whether it's the flowers, whether it's the parts and pieces, we do everything we can to kind of reuse and recycle and upcycle, which is, taking something that would otherwise just go in the dumpster and doing something good with it. And then we're trying to get better at that every day and every week with different recycling initiatives, whether it's, the plastics or the metals, all the way to, just the basics, which is take flowers and reuse and repurpose them, give them another chance. I mean, I think the giving of flowers, the using of flowers often comes with a purpose. You give flowers for love, celebration, happiness, remembrance. We're just simply, giving them a second life and giving them a second life on behalf of someone else.
Larsen, I'm on your great website. And again, for our listeners out there, it's randomactsofflowers.org. I see now you have branches in Chicago, Silicon Valley, Pinellas, Florida, Greenville, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. How can you open more branches? What's your vision to opening more branches? And how can our listeners get involved? Because we're going to have listeners who want to get involved. How can our listeners join your great mission to help make the world a better place?
Well, I think, the first thing they can do is, of course, support us nationally as we continue to grow. The formula and sort of our program fits pretty much everywhere. What it comes down to is local leadership and strong financial support to get it going. I mean, I think most people that, are involved with charities sort of focus on the mission and they don't often know how much goes into making a successful mission on the business side. So really, as we strategically grow, we're looking at places that obviously have a lot of healthcare facilities and people to serve, have a lot of flowers, of course, but have a lot of local leadership that can help raise enough money to kind of get it off the ground and then keep it going. It's not terribly expensive, but it does require some staff and some space and some delivery vans and things like that.
Got it. And what's next for you and your wife? Like when you guys are mapping out just this year, what's next for Random Acts of Flowers?
Well, I mean, right now we're focused on, we open our Silicon Valley branch in California in April, and that's underway right now, and that'll have an official launch this spring, which will be great to sort of be on the West Coast and bring our program, and then we're going to focus on Indianapolis in the fall, which is already in the works, and then we've got several conversations with other cities around the country that have already been in development, places like West Palm Beach and Salt Lake City and Cincinnati. And we're trying to sort of grow organically in a way that makes sense without getting too big too fast. We spend a lot of time focusing on keeping it simple, keeping it focused, keeping it effective, and not trying to, conquer the whole world. And so I think as we grow, it's about having enough internal resources on a national level to make sure we have everything in the right direction, and then also just finding great leaders around the country who say, you know what, this ought to be in my town, and reaching out and saying hi. And after that, I don't know. We had no clue we'd be doing this 5 or 7 years ago, and we're not really planning too much down the road. We just stay focused and one day at a time. Well,
you took a tragedy and you made it a triumph, and we're so honored to have you on, Larsen. You're doing just amazing stuff with your wife, and we thank you for being the founder and CEO of Random Acts of Flowers. For our listeners out there, please get involved. Please help support Random Acts of Flowers in whatever way is appropriate for you. It's randomactsofflowers.org. Thank you, Larsen, for being a recycling rock star. You are truly living proof that green
Thank you.
is good.
I appreciate it.